This program is brought to you by Emory University.
On March 17, 2014, the Center for Faculty Development and Excellence at Emory University hosted a discussion titled Scholarly Writing in the Digital Milieu. The panelists discussed the challenges and opportunities afforded by the rapidly evolving world of digital scholarship, how scholars can use the web to collaborate with their peers and engage new and wider audiences, and how digital platforms can influence the character of scholarly writing itself. The speakers were Rupika Rizam, Assistant Professor of World Literature and English Education at Salem State University, and Adeline Coe, Director of the Digital Humanities Center and Assistant Professor of Literature at Richard Stockton College. In this video, Professor Coe describes her journey through the world of digital scholarship, from Twitter to a website to a book deal, and how her experience has affected her approach to scholarship.
I'm going to start off our presentation by talking about how DHPOC was born and where it evolved and how it evolved. So the title of the talk, as you can see, is PostColonial Digital Humanities from Hashtag to Movement. So we started DHPOC by asking ourselves, how could we learn from both fields and what could both fields learn from one another? Both of us were not, well, I anyway, was not trained as a digital humanist as a graduate student. I was trained as a post-colonial studies scholar primarily. Same. And so was Rupika. And we discovered digital humanities later in our careers. And when we discovered digital humanities, we're interested in how we could apply what we were already grounded with post-colonial studies, and for Rupika, minority and ethnic studies, how we could learn to speak across both fields, given our training in post-colonial studies and race studies. And DHPOC began, as most things on the digital humanities begin, with a hashtag on Twitter. And that's actually how I met Rupika as well, through Twitter. We always tell people when they ask us, how did you guys meet? On the internet. Said in a very seedy voice. So we discovered each other on Twitter, and we really liked each other because we discovered that both of us were working on very similar intellectual projects, but without any knowledge of each other. So Rupika works on African American and Asian American connections, and I work on African and Asian connections. So she works on the diaspora within the United States, and I work on Asia and Africa more generally. So we were really interested in talking about interracial collaboration, interethnic collaboration, especially in relation to race ethnicity. And so when we both discovered that we were working on the same thing except in different geographical regions, and we were both interested in the digital humanities, it was like, ooh, match made in heaven. And that's how DHPOC began. So we started off by discussing all these great projects that we could conceive of that related to post-colonial digital humanities. One of our early suggestions was to create a digital archive of all Enid Blyton books. And if you're from a British colony, you will understand that every colonial or colonized girl child especially, grows up reading these books by this woman, and all of us internalize all these stories. And so we wanted to create kind of a digital we thought about creating a digital archive of people's responses as well as annotations of the text to Enid Blyton. Hasn't happened yet, but we got a lot of interest from other fellow post-colonials, so maybe it might happen one day. So we started with a hashtag, and we started with a hashtag basically by seeing whether people would find this hashtag useful as a way to connect with work that they were already doing. And we found out that they did. A lot of people started using this hashtag and communicating with us using it. So we decided to progress to the next obviously logical step, which for us was a Tumblr blog. And we went to the Tumblr blog partly because we didn't know how far we were going to go with this, and because Rupika came up with a really good idea that the Tumblr blog would allow us to share more material other than a hashtag on Twitter that related or signified what we thought post-colonial digital humanities was about. And it went from a Tumblr blog to comic strips. And this happened all about 1 year ago. Last January was the founding month of DHPOC, and we're really proud that in less than a year, we got about 500 likes, more than 500 likes on our Facebook page in less than a year. But about a year ago, when we started launching DHPOC Comics, was probably around the time that you've noticed bit strips invading your Facebook timeline. And so we decided to use those powers for good, and also went to the main Bitstrip site to see whether we could actually create more tailored comics that would describe what we were trying to do with the post-colonial digital humanities. And so in our comics, we all try to get at issues that connect both fields. So in this image was used in a discussion that we had last year on our website about whether the digital humanities is actually a refuge, as Martha Nell Smith has claimed, from race, class, gender, and sexuality. And that's me on the left, and Rupika is on the right, and we're playing World of Warcraft. And I'm saying to her that I thought that, and I'm quoting, I'm alluding to this popular internet meme, on the internet nobody knows you're a dog, which since the 90s has given rise to this utopian idea that on the internet you can be anything, identity categories don't matter, don't restrict any longer. So we're all good in this new digital utopia, but despite all that, identity categories are everywhere on the internet and continue to play very important roles. So in that sense, that's how we're bringing both fields together in that comic. And another way that we talk about DHPOC is by working on Wikipedia. And this comic references a New York Times article from last March, I believe, March or April, where a contributor called Amanda Filipacci wrote an article about how on Wikipedia, some Wikipedia editors are specifically moving American women novelists out of the American novelist category into the American women novelist category. And I'm gesturing at that in the comic strip above by saying, it's interesting who gets left. The identity composition of who gets left into the American writers category. So from a hashtag to Tumblr blog to comics, we finally reached what we thought was our apex, which is our website. And our website features all these articles, some by us, a lot by different people, and we love submissions. So if any of you are interested in writing something, or your students would be interested in writing something for DHPOC, please let us know. We really like submissions. So all of these are articles written by us and other people that are on the intersections of both fields, post-colonial studies and the digital humanities. Finally, from a hashtag, blah, 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 we are currently working on a DHPOC book, and we have gotten an advance contract from a university press, but we are not sure whether we're going to go with that press or another press. So we will hopefully be making up our minds in the next month or so, and hopefully the book will see light in 2015. And the comic strip up there kind of makes fun of us and how we overthink things. I'm on the left, Rupika is in the center, and on the right is Alex Hill, who is a friend of ours at Columbia. So what is DHPOC about? DHPOC's main issue is to not think about technology in either black or white, good or bad terms. For us, technology is not good, it's not bad, it's not going to be this amazing labor-saving series of devices that's going to make our lives better. It's not going to be horrible and drag us into the state of constant alienation that we need to escape from and back to our pastoral, primitive natures. For us, all those arguments don't really hold water. We're interested in talking about technology in a cultural sense. So technology is not good, not evil. Technology is cultural. Technology creates culture, creates us through culture, we create culture through technology. And that's what we're interested in exploring. And we're particularly interested in exploring how technology is involved in culture and creating global structural inequalities. So one way in which you can think about that is with our comic strip here, where Rubica is saying in the classroom, in the imaginary classroom, remember kids, with big data comes big responsibility, which, as you all know, is a quote that derives from with great power comes great responsibility. And so Alex elaborates on that, asking whether metadata and big data could actually be used to discriminate against groups of people. And so for us, as we have been saying, technology is not inherently good or evil. The metadata that comes out of big data projects, the way big data projects are used, conceived of, are not inherently good or bad, but tools that can be used in a lot of different ways. And so I remind everybody that in the digital humanities, we have to remember to use our powers for good, not evil. Another productive intersection that we found is thinking about the intersections between computer language and human language. So in one of a famous African-American writer, Audre Lorde, made a famous claim that the master's tools, meaning language, could never dismantle the master's house, meaning that if you continue to use a colonial language of signification, you can never actually use that language to deter to destroy the system of colonization or a system of oppression. And so here we have put that quote in the other way to Frantz Fanon, who's actually one of our great heroes. And so he's saying that language can be used to dismantle the master's house or the system of oppression. And so we think that's a great idea, and we want to apply that to computational language. So we're trying to work on CSS here and realizing how difficult it actually is, and actually draws from our own experience, because we were editing CSS in our Tumblr blog at that time, and it was driving us absolutely insane. But in that sense, that's how we think about these intersections productively. So DHPOC, in short, we define it as an emergent field of study that draws from post-colonial studies and the digital humanities, where we are primarily interested in going against techno-utopian narratives of internet being fantastic, the digital being fantastic, technology being fantastic or horrible. And we want to foreground the role of anti-colonial thought in the digital humanities. We also want to work on decolonizing digital projects and cultures. And our website has covered a number of articles that actually resonate with this theme. This article by Angela Coxes, who is a graduate student, is a post-colonial reading of the computer game Age of Empires. And in the reading, she makes an interesting argument that the way in which the gameplay is structured actually creates an othering of time. So the past essentially becomes a primitive other, where everything is essentialized in this game. And she does this and she also goes from that to talk about cultural stereotypes that emerge from this kind of game mechanic. For example, all European cultures will progress in exactly the same way. All Asian cultures will progress exactly the same way, the same kinds of buildings. So in that sense, that creates this form of cultural stereotyping. And this is another article that was written by a friend of ours, Anna Joban, who was analyzing the UN Women Awareness Campaign and some of what it stirred up. So the UN Women's Campaign was when the UN Women's Group put up a series of advertisements showing what happens with Google autocomplete algorithms. So when you type women should, what pops up? And obviously what pops up are things which are not very nice, such as women should stay at home, women should be slaves, women should be in the kitchen, women should not speak in church, women need to be put in their place, women need to know their place, etc., etc. It's even worse when you try Googling Asian women or black women or any kind of minority women. But she basically asked the question in her article, So Google says that the fault is not ours. The fault is not ours. The fault is with these users that who have generated this algorithm. And Anna asks, if that is the case, that who is in charge then when the algorithm is in charge? And this also leads us to another article that was featured on DHPOC a while back by Lisa Nakamura, who made an argument about glitches on the internet and glitch racism on the internet. So everybody always talks about racism or sexism on the internet as being something that's just part of the outer fringes that normal people on the internet don't really involve themselves in. And Lisa argued in her article, well, if that's so, is that really true? Or is there something about racism and sexism that isn't just part of glitches, but part of the real backbone of the internet? So we do a whole bunch of projects related to post-colonial digital humanities as well. We have the website, and as I said earlier, we accept submissions. And we are working on a rewriting Wikipedia project where we are writing women into Wikipedia. We also have a DHPOC summer school, which we are planning to have again this year, where we basically discuss a few open access articles in relation to both fields online. And I think I'm done. That's it.
The preceding program is copyrighted by Emory University.